this time of year, it's heating season, so you know what it's like. It's go time.
Absolutely. Yeah, heating season gets busy. Is this do you find that people prepare for analyzer sales, or do they turn on an analyzer and go, "Oh shoot, it don't work. We need another
You
one,"
know,
or
it's funny, man. When I first started, because I've been doing this for 23 years now, 22, 23 years. As analyzer sales have grown substantially over the years and guys are more inclined to use them, we're starting to see a very, very small number of guys start to prepare in the summer. And we try to do our best to send out reminders and run specials and calibration promotions and get your units in and everything we can. But 90% of them, man, oh my God, that first boiler call or, everybody's back at school and then it's all of a sudden, oh shit, here we go.
yeah, that's same thing with boilers. They'll in the spring it'll be, "Hey, can you patch us through to the summer? Can we to fix it?" And so then, you do whatever in April, May, the boiler gets shut down. Summer comes, they're like, "Oh, we have all summer. Like, let's not worry about this. Like, let's just get into summer."
Right.
And then nobody checks the boiler room, and those emails that you sent go unanswered.
Yeah, they're on
Schools
summer vacation.
school starts, and September comes around, and then somebody goes in the boiler room,
Mm-hmm.
or and goes like, "Hey, like, what's all these parts laying on the ground, or why is this thing open like this?" Or the custodian goes to turn on the heat September to test, or the facilities guys, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that repair we were supposed to do, yeah, that pump that we needed, yeah, we didn't do that. Oh yeah, that was what, April? Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, we didn't get. Oh, nobody got that done." And it's just seemingly like summer's kind of 3 months, but not really. But it's a seemingly endless timeline of, we have time, but if nobody makes it a priority,
Yeah.
fall comes around super quick, and now your boiler doesn't run, and now all the heating contractors are getting tons of calls on the first cold morning of, our boiler doesn't run, and it's 100% preventable, but if count.
It's, I mean, honestly, Eric, I mean, I can't tell you when August hits, we start kind of making calls and sending emails and going, hey guys, I know everybody's at the beach right now, but like you need to start thinking about, and that's starting to grow a little bit, but still, man, that first cold spell, like it's been here where I'm in the Philly area. The last 2 weeks have been kind of all of a sudden, oh shit, you're starting to see frost. And then the phones ring and they send in their analyzer and they're going, how fast can you get it back? And I go, our typical turnaround time is 24 to 48 hours in the worst part of the season. But I go, you and everybody else are doing the same thing. So it's we're there, but we're not getting there any quicker than normal, man. We're just creatures of habit. I don't care what market you are. My wife is a teacher, right? When she's on summer break, she's on summer break. She doesn't prepare for school until like a week before that shit starts, and then all of a sudden it hits her. It's her heating season too. So it doesn't matter what you do in life. We all have that same kind of, I'll do it when it's in season or ready.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good opportunity to, you could say, "Oh, well, humans just need to be better. They need to change their behavior." But it's like, all right, what can we do as a company to change that behavior and can control everything we can control? And I think that brainstorming activity can lead to a lot of stuff that you would find solutions for. Especially in this case, there's ways to go about marketing or reach out or automatic reach
Sure.
outs that can easily kind of change, or promotions. There's all kinds of stuff. And but that's the fun of business, is you can kind of do whatever you want. There's rules, but then at the same time there aren't rules. Like, everybody kind of looks around and sees what everybody else is doing, and they're like, all right, well, that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
But
I've see here, we've always tried to be different. I've always been a component of whether it's a feature, whether it's one of our trainings, whether it's something we do, whether it's service, right, related. I mean, we have to be different than our competitors because we're not the big behemoths that we compete with, like Testo or Ecom or something. So we're very specialized, and we have to do that. So, what are other outreach programs? And we do kind of a sales outreach, which is part of the training. We do an after service outreach, which is training and calibration. And yeah, I mean, every unit that goes out, we send email reminders. We send letter reminders to guys who register them. We send the analyzers pop up with a message saying, "Hey, they're due." What some of our competitors have done, which I don't like, is to be even more proactive. Is once the units hit a certain time date where the calibration's due, they'll actually shut off, like you can't use them, and then you're kind of stuck. I don't like going to that extreme kind of way, but those are some ways some competitors are. Those one of those things where you see a competitor do and you go, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that." Then I'm going to get some pretty upset phone calls.
Well, it's a common theme of how do we extract everything out of our customer in 2025, but then there's businesses that are doing all right, how do we actually put our customers first? What do our customers actually want? And with Amazon Prime and everything, do our customers actually want more ads? Yes or no? Wait,
Yeah, yeah.
we could sign a $200 million ad deal, but are we going to go from $1.2 billion in revenue to $1.4 billion? Like, yeah, but you're kind of involved with baseball. Have you heard of banana ball?
Oh my God, it's a big hit in my house. My son is just about to turn 14 next week. He is a huge banana ball fan because he's a huge baseball player. So that age, it's perfect.
Yeah, so that's Jesse Cole. I think the actual name of the company is Fans First Entertainment, and
Yeah,
he wrote a book on it. But the owner, the Savannah Bananas, but he operates the business of how do we do everything possible to make it a great experience. So food is free at the Savannah ballpark. Tickets are $30 from the lottery system. There's no advertising, and it stays under 2 hours. It's very engaging. Like they've
it's great.
killed it. They have 4 million people on the waiting list to buy tickets, and yeah, that's.
I just heard this morning. Speaking of that, on my phone this morning that they're launching 2 new teams.
Yeah, I did see. I didn't see the launch. I did see the prep. I saw a post about it. But they're launching teams, and a lot of people say this is going to be a trend, but I don't think. I think people are so fed up with companies, especially sports companies. Oh, it's $20 for a beer, and
Yeah,
$8 for a hot dog, and advertising, and this and that, and $400 for seats. At what point do you start looking at other options and say, you know what, this isn't really what it is supposed to be? And how do we? Yeah,
absolutely, man. My son is I told you we're in the Philly area. My son's a big baseball fan. We have the unfortunate aspect of his birthday being in October. So when the Phillies are good here, it's Red October, right? So it's a big deal, and we got some big players. So of course, I have taken him in past years for his birthday to a ball game. Him and some friends. And he asked me this year. He said, "Dad, can we go to a game and take a couple buddies?" And I go, "Wes, we're playing the Dodgers. The tickets alone, nosebleeds are like $300-400 a pop. I mean, it's going to be like $1,000 just to go to one game for 3 hours." I go, "Dude, it's time to start thinking of something else." So over the summer, we did go to a Savannah Bananas game, and it was awesome. I mean, it was a great experience and all that kind of stuff. So it ties into, hey, let's do something different and provide a different experience completely, right? No matter what you do.
absolutely. And there's good opportunities in boring markets. Like sports is very glamorous, and you got to compete with all the big players, but combustion analyzers, gas analyzers, like that's not very fun. But if you approach it from a fun aspect and, hey, how do we make these products, and how do we build this company to support the technician, to support the
Sure.
owners that are installing gas systems? So what are you doing right now for training for people? I see that you're always posting online. You and other people are traveling around. What does
Yeah.
that training involve?
So I'll tell you, man, from when I got started, when had a lot more hair, a lot thinner, and a lot younger, one of the aspects that was always kind of beaten down to me were that unlike some of our bigger competitors out there, we had to do something different, right? Like just like we talked about in baseball, we kind of started. We were the kind of Savannah Bananas of combustion analyzers. We were just some nobody who were trying to do some outreach programs to technicians and do some trainings, and our trainings have become quite popular and fun, mainly because of our personalities, the way we do things. I mean, some of our guys have won training awards over the years, and that's really it's a kind of a testament of how we're doing it and how we're going to market. And so we travel, especially this time of year. We've been to all 48 states and Canadian provinces, and we go everywhere. There's three of us right now full time that just whether it's a supply house, whether it's a boiler contractor, whether it's a HVAC company, a plumbing company, I don't care. We go and train on combustion. Now, like you said, combustion is not the sexiest thing to talk about. Hey guys, let's talk about O2 and CO and CO2 and draft. So you got to make it fun. You got to make it like it's a different type of thing. And you try to keep it to about 2-3 hours so you don't kind of lose everybody in that type of world. But we have a live fire for the first time 2 years ago when we moved to our new Newtown, Pennsylvania location. We have a live fire training room, which you can see kind of a little bit of a background. It's a classroom with live fire, and we bring guys in from all over the country that come in and do training, or we go out and outreach. So we actually do not spend, Cytron does not spend a ton of money on advertising. We don't. We put a lot of our marketing and advertising dollars more into our travel and outreach expenses because it costs a lot of money for us to go to Ohio and Boston and Chicago and all these places. You're talking about flights and hotels and all that kind of stuff, but I don't care. I want to be in front of the technicians. Number one, you build relationships with the technicians because they know somebody's coming out and doing the training. And we strictly, and my guys are very strict about this. This is not a sales presentation. I, I don't care what analyzer type you have. We focus on the combustion training and we have fun doing it. If guys tend to then trust what you're doing and what the process is. And the next time they think about an analyzer, hopefully they think about you. But that's our focus is mainly focused on the training part. So we go out there and we do our thing, and the sales always come from the training, whether it's that day or later on. It's okay. We build relationships, we build trust with the contractors, and the other thing that we do is we have a 24-hour tech support here. Like we have guys on call just like technicians are on call. You have a problem in front of a boiler. In fact, I'm getting a call as we speak. So you have a problem in front of a boiler or you have a question, you call the office. We have live people. We have 24-hour tech support if it's after hours or something like that. I got beaten into my head many, many years ago that even though we might sell through a supply house or a distributor or whatever, your customer, your guy, is the guy standing in front of the boiler, and nobody ever calls you to tell you, I just want to tell you I love your analyzer. It's usually, what the fuck does this mean? That's kind of it's kind of the way it goes. So we want to be that resource, and the more we have become that resource, the more honestly the customers come to us for the equipment. We're kind of a ground level, kind of root, what's that word? Grassroots type of company. Like we started in the boiler room like everybody else, and we're just kind of going out there and doing training, and that's how word spreads. And I've been doing it for 23 years now, so it's worked pretty well, and that's kind of our main focus.
What do you see as far as technicians wise, as far as what do they struggle with combustion? Because combustion, it has ranges, and most of your customers are going to be on the smaller units. We're not talking about giant power plants here, and that's what everybody goes to with combustion. But combustion is so important with even just a gas fired furnace, but all the way up to a residential boiler, then to a commercial boiler. Like there's no safe combustion process where you're like, oh, it only makes 50 parts of CO, but it's a little boiler. Like, oh, that doesn't kill anybody. Like, it's important at all ranges, but like, where do you find technicians where they struggle or don't have understanding of like combustion and how to use a gas analyzer?
The biggest struggle most technicians have. So when I go into a class and we start talking about even the guys who have analyzer experience, the problem is all of us as an industry have been taught one way or another. Like my first slide in our presentation is the worst phrase in our industry is this is how we've always done it. That's and I when we're doing our training, we go back to that slide, I don't know, 15, 20 times. Because I'll ask guys, okay, well, what do you look for here? And what do you look for here? And all right, I want to check for a cracked heat exchanger. How do we do it? And I'll go up on the board and guys will tell me how they look for it. And I'll get camera and CO and draft and all. So everybody's got for every different thing that they're looking for, they'll have like 10 ways to do it. And the biggest issue is, okay, I have an analyzer. I did the test. What do the readings mean? And there's this conception or perception, excuse me, that there's only one range of combustion that we should all be in. And it's not true. Whether you're on a 90% or an 80% or oil, gas, there are different ranges for different types of equipment, right? So we started to that's the biggest thing is some technicians will look for CO and PPM, and that'll be their main focus. Other guys will look for CO2, and that'll be their main focus. And, then draft gets overlooked and all that. So what we try to do is go, look, guys, everything on this analyzer, from the oxygen all the way down to temperatures and draft, they all aren't important. You can't skip over one or the other. They all mean something to get to the main goal of running the equipment both safely and efficiently. Because you don't understand it or don't know what that reading is, doesn't mean that it's not important. And that's our job during our training classes is to go over mainly what are these things, how are they created, what ranges should you be in, and go through the process of what you do when they're not. That's really the other factor. And you see, I love when we do these trainings because you see the light bulbs go off and go, oh shit, I never thought of that, or I never thought of this. Like I'll give you one example. Just this morning, we did a training about an hour from here out in Allentown, PA, and we were doing a test with a combustion analyzer on a gas furnace, and we were looking for a cracked heat exchanger, right? And this technician was thinking, well, I know, or I've been told, or the old adage is if the CO ppm is above 200 or 300 ppm, that's when I know I have a crack in the heat exchanger. Okay, so we did the test, and I started showing him that I don't really care what the CO is because I'm looking for the oxygen when the blower's on and off, just these little things, right? And we noticed that on this furnace, the CO when the blower was off was 29.4. When the blower came on, the oxygen increased, of course, because there was a crack, but the CO only went to 59. While the CO jumped, it was still in his mind at a good range, but I had to explain to him, no, you have a crack in the heat exchanger. So just because it's not within the range that you're familiar with doesn't mean that there's a problem. So to give back to your question, the real problem is getting guys to understand and decipher what those readings all mean. And that's kind of like I said, it's not the sexiest thing out there and stuff, but I don't care if it's a small residential gas furnace or boiler or, million BTU. It doesn't matter. Combustion's combustion, no matter what you do. Gas, oil, wood, coal, biofuels, whatever the case may be. And we see these issues all the time, and our job is to get guys to be more familiar with not just getting an analyzer, but actually operating it. That's the other thing. The second part to that, by the way, is not just what the readings mean. It's also how you operate the analyzer, how to take the test correctly, where to take the test, and then how to actually maintain and take care of your analyzer. Because I love some of my technicians, but not the most delicate creatures to ever walk God's green earth. So, we have to teach them how to take care of these things as well.
I mean, I think people do know how to take care of it. They just don't have the appreciation for it. When I was a technician, my tool bag and combustion analyzer solve 90% of the problems. And,
Absolutely.
I'll put a plug in for taking your combustion analyzer in at night when it's freezing.
Yeah.
You don't want your combustion analyzer to freeze. And especially if you show up in the morning, 7 a.m. to a call, and your combustion analyzer's been outside all night, you don't want to stick it in a hot boiler, and you want to warm it up. But if it's been in your house, it's all good to go. And yes, that may be a little extra beyond the 9 to 5 and clock out. But that's why you're paid what you are, and that's why you're the expert and the technician. And you need to be the person who shows up with calibrated tools that are ready to present yourself as the expert. And if you just treat tools like, this is just combustion analyzer, you put it in the case, throw it in the back of the truck. I remember talking to a technician, two of them. I'm like, hey, you guys got a combustion analyzer? And they were like, oh, yeah, we share one. We think it's in this job box. We haven't used it in like a
Yeah.
year. And they like rummage around in the job box, and then they like pull it out from the bottom. And like the calibration date was like 5 years ago. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, they're like, oh, we don't use it much, but we just pull it out whenever and we share it. And we just throw it in the job box whenever we don't need it. Cause we're too busy with AC calls or all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not
Crazy. It's crazy.
that's not treating the combustion analyzer. And then, then technicians turn it on and it doesn't work. And they're like, oh, this thing's junk. Oh,
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I've found that, going back to the, seeing people in person, there's this trend in the industry of people like, oh, this equipment's junk. This is junk. This is junk. And it always relates back to what people are most familiar with, and the equipment that they're most familiar with is what they like. It doesn't actually matter how it actually performs. So, if you give your combustion analyzer to somebody and they've used a different brand for 20 years, they have the tendency to go, this is junk. It doesn't work. It doesn't
Yeah, of course.
And it's like, well, no, you just need to be educated, and coming from an open mindset of, hey, this company makes a great product, and maybe I'm doing something wrong here. And at the first sign of trouble, especially with your phone, oh, my phone isn't working. All right, well, turn it on, turn it off again. Oh, no big deal. But nobody says, oh, this iPhone's junk, and throws it on the ground and, goes by another phone. But people do that with a combustion analyzer.
And the analyzer is more than the phone.
Yeah, just have some patience. The first sign of trouble doesn't mean that it's the equipment. It may be you. And also, going back to the combustion analyst reading, a lot of technicians, and you probably see this, think in binary. Well, just tell me the numbers that are bad, and so that I can remember anything over this number or these numbers and these ranges. This is bad and this is good. And that's what, going back to 200-300. But if you understand how a heat exchanger cracks, it slowly corrodes, it slowly cracks, and it gets bigger. And by the time you're reading 200-300 parts per million of CO, like, you got a hole in it. But like the heat exchanger doesn't.
It's not crack anymore.
Yeah, you got a huge hole. So the heat exchanger doesn't just blow open on a back turn 90, one night and just start making CO everywhere. It's just slow progress.
Yes.
But you as a technician need to have the indicators and the training to see and catch that slow progress, so that you don't, when you see the 200-300, that's when you're on the 5 p.m. news and the fire department shows up and all this stuff. And it's like, you don't want to wait for the disaster to be like, oh yeah, that we found it. So
definitely 100%.
It goes back to training. And so how do people get you to show up?
Honestly, we're pretty easy to get a hold of. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to show up tomorrow if you call, right? Because we're same kind of idea that we were talking about calibration before. We reach out to customers over the summer to say, hey, heating season's coming. Do you want to start prepping the training sessions? And, whether it's at the distributor or something like that, but everybody's in AC mode for that. And then all of a sudden Labor Day hits and everybody's calling to go, when can we get you in to do training? When can we get you in to do training? And you go, dude, I'm booked through November at this point. But calling us, emailing us, reaching out to us, just ask us, man. I don't care where you are in the country. We go everywhere. Just to give an example, between the three of us, I'm kind of hitting up this whole week. I've been in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Baltimore. My colleague Dan has been in New England all week, and our other guy Kevin, he's been in I think Michigan all week. And this goes week to week, right? So I fly out to Chicago. I'll be in the Chicagoland area doing some classes out there all next week. So that's kind of what we do. We just try to schedule it in when we're in the area. And we do them all day. Like if we're traveling, usually we're doing a class like I did this morning, 7 a.m. to 10. We'll do a lunch and learn somewhere between 12 to 2, and then sometimes we run classes from 4 or 5, at night. That when technicians are off the road or when they can go. And when we run classes here, we run them about 2 or 3 times a month here, so they could always come to us too. Pretty popular on the East Coast, especially because that's where we are. But guys come here and they go through the training here, and we will have staggered times and availability and options, excuse me, for different times and days, so guys can pick which one works best for them. But I honestly, we do classes for 5 or 6 technicians up to, I think Dan just did one in Michigan over the summer, and we were actually at like a college lecture hall with over 100 techs in a college lecture hall. I mean, it's really cool to see where we have gone from when I started to, guys are more interested in training. And I think part of it is in the market. You're getting a lot of new equipment, a lot of new technology, a lot of changes, whether it's on the venting side, whether it's on the boiler side, whether it's on a variety of different things. I mean, we're constantly changing, and equipment's changing and updating, and it's becoming more touchy, but also very more technology based. Excuse me. So analyzers are becoming much more of a required tool. There's a huge push from the manufacturer side now for both warranty and for liability. I mean, you will see it in almost every manual I've seen from a manufacturer that says, hey, you need a calibrated, that's my keyword, a calibrated combustion analyzer in order to do the startup and setup and commissioning of the equipment. So that's been a big change. I mean, look, I've been doing analyzers. This is my whole world for my entire career. When I first started, there was only like 4 brands of analyzers. When I was starting up, Testo, Backrack, UEI maybe, and then and us. And I think I just went to the AHR Expo, which for those of you who know is our biggest trade show of the year in our world, and I counted about 14 or 15 brands. So what does that tell you? There's an enormous market now for this, and I think as younger technicians come in, they love the screens, the readings, the technology, and wanting to do things, I think, the right way. Not all, but the vast majority. So, it's kind of cool to see the increase in not only the instrumentation, the equipment, but the want and the need for the training aspect. We're kind of a unique company where I've sat in with some pretty big contractors, and we're talking, 50, 60, 100 analyzers that they're looking at buying. And I'll sit in these wonderful sales meetings, and I will tell contractors that if you do not allow us to come in and do training with your technicians, there are 14 other brands to buy. I'm not interested. This is how we build relationship with the technician, so they feel comfortable calling us when they have a question, not just dropping an analyzer off at the service manager and then I don't know what happened to it, because so many issues with analyzers can be fixed in the field. So many. You made a good point about cold, right? I make this analogy in all my classes. I go, you ever leave your cell phone or your laptop out in the truck overnight? And you get guys like, yeah. And what happens in the morning? Well, it's cold and slow and it's reacting and real slow to react. And I go, okay, now imagine you preheat your oven to 350 degrees and put your phone in the oven. Would you do that? And everyone looks at you like, no. And I go, but that's if you take a cold electronic computer that you left in your truck overnight, bring it in, turn the pump on, and put the probe into a 350-degree stack, the pump is pulling that gas into the analyzer. And then you're calling me going, it's not working. And I'm telling you on the phone, no shit. You have to give it time to kind of dry out because you've built up condensation. And then all of a sudden, all the errors that you saw go away after 20, 30 minutes. So there's all these like little things that can be fixed in the field. But that's part of the class. Part of the training that we do is not just the numbers and what they mean, but also, hey, guys, how do we maintain these? What do you do with them? Turning them on outside in fresh air. And we show examples of using it as a CO tool when you come into the room. There's all these different aspects, and there's two different ways to look at it: the combustion part and the analyzer part. And we train on both.
Yeah, that's good. I think a lot of companies, especially I wouldn't, maybe not contractors, but definitely end users, they just want to write a check and it to be done. And I mean, contractors do this too. With training, I see it. They're like, all right, we have $10,000. We want to pay for training, and they, then they get a brochure and they think it's a linear path of, all right, we paid for the training. All our students and all of our employees are going to download all this information into their brains, and then they're gonna be perfect, and we're gonna be able to cross that off, and we're gonna be able to move on to the next box. I'm like, well, that's I would love that if that's how humans were, but that's humans. Humans are not computers, and you don't just download information, and
it's not fair either. To be honest, Eric, it's not fair. Like when we train on the combustion, I said before, there are different ranges for good combustion, for O2, CO, CO2, draft, temperature. There are different ranges based on different fuel, based on different types of equipment. There is no one singular range, none. So stop that, right? So it's also not fair, and I try to tell guys in class because I'll start it and I'll point out and I go, okay, you're running a 90% boiler and you're doing this and you're doing that. Now give me what the reading should be. And a lot of times I don't get a lot of answers, or they're very, very generic, general range. And I'll go, it's not fair to you guys. Technicians have so much to do, so much to remember, so much constant change. It's actually not fair to say, okay, unless you do specifically what I do for a living, you're not going to know what every range is for every different type of equipment because it's not what you do every day. It's just not. So what we started to do, and it took like a long time because for in our trainings, we would start to go over, we would spend a half an hour of a 2-hour training going, okay, on this system, these are the ranges. On this system, these are the ranges. And I would watch guys write down all the different types of ranges. So years ago, we created like cheat sheets and stuff like that to give out as handouts so guys have them in the field. And it's cool to see now when equipment comes in for service and you see these old cheat sheets from 10, 15, almost 20 years ago, and you go, oh, shit, they're still using it. But technology and things have changed too. But what we did on our new Novo unit, which is very different than what any other analyzer manufacturer has done, is we took all of these years of going out and seeing what guys are doing and knowing that no matter if they come to a training and get a certificate and go, okay, I'm trained on combustion. Okay, they still have to decipher what all the readings mean. So what we did was we implemented in the Novo now what we call a pro mode. We call it the pro mode on the unit, but it's a combustion assistant. And what happens is the technician sets the fuel. Then when you're in the combustion assistant mode, you tell it what type of system you're running. And visually on the screen, it gives you kind of for every range, for every parameter, a green kind of go, no-go zone. So now I don't have to depend on the technician to know every single range for every different type of fuel or equipment. And they feel more comfortable doing the reading. And my goal, as Citron's goal and my team's goal, is the easier we can make combustion analysis to understand, to know, the more likely actually guys will do it. The easier and more likely it is that they'll do it, the better equipment will run. The better equipment runs, the better our market becomes. I mean, when you spend this long doing training, you kind of start to gain a passion for making a mark in the industry. And the making a mark is, how do I make the market better? How do we get technicians more to do the equipment, but not to scare them as to all these different types of boilers and furnaces and steam or this or that or the ranges? No. Just put it in the equipment. We already know what the reading should be for most stuff. And now we're even We're even partnering up with a variety of manufacturers, giving us their specific model numbers and ranges that we're putting into the analyzer. So if a guy's working on a Viessmann, an NTI, a Cleaver Brooks, whatever the case may be, he doesn't have to find the manual or do anything. They're actually implemented into the analyzer already. So these are those little things when we started the conversation. Like, how do you make yourself different? Uh, the only way to get guys to use an analyzer without hand holding them sometimes is to make it easier, make it simpler. And it's not just the use of it, but really the main crux is how do we make understanding what they're reading much easier?
Yeah, you took something. Yes, technicians can look up the manual. Yes, they can remember. Yes, all that stuff. But I think there's like a safety doctrine that safety starts. The number one thing is engineering controls. So instead of like if we have an elevated platform, instead of telling people, "Hey, be careful," and you need to wear a harness and tie off, they go, "Hey, can't we just add a handrail?" All right, now
Yeah.
we don't need to, now we don't need to worry about tying off and beating people, to worry about elevated platforms. Same thing with combustion analyzer. So instead of telling people that they need to write all these numbers down and remember it and do all this stuff, hey, why don't we just build it into our product, a way to help them and give them some guidance? Because I think a lot of experts or a lot of people that are, they just need to learn. A lot of people forget that a lot of technicians don't only work on gas fired or heating equipment or boilers. And if you, and I don't know how they do it. I never did that. I've only worked on boilers. But if you are doing AC calls for 6, 7 months out of the year, and then all of a sudden you got to pick up a combustion analyzer and go look at a furnace, and then you're looking at a combustion analyzer for the first time in 7 months on a
Yeah, it's
boiler or
hard.
something. Yeah, like
It's hard.
nobody, even if you were like, oh man, last season I started this thing up, like what was, like, I kind of remember and made, like, humans forget if you don't do it all the time. And that's engineering controls. You add that feature. And what combustion analyzer is that on?
That's on our Novo analyzer.
That's
So
your
that
flagship one?
that's my flagship one. Yeah. So, we try to do a lot of things different. So, the printer being built in and not a separated printer anymore, the big 7-inch touchscreen. But the reason we did the 7-inch touchscreen is not because we wanted to go to touchscreen. Who gives a shit if it's touchscreen or not? It just has to, one, it has to work. Two, it has to be durable. And three, how do we make it different than everybody else's? And one of the things was when we implemented that big touchscreen on it, it was because we knew we were going to develop the kind of digital footprint for this combustion assistant, right? And you need space, because you want colors and green. And the nice part is, even if you're colorblind, which I know a lot of guys in our market are colorblind, the way that the visual screen goes, you could still see it dark or light, right? So kind of exactly where you are. And that was a key factor. And then just this past year, we implemented a new update to the unit where we have a cracked heat exchanger test on there now, where you can actually, it walks you through a 3-step process to determine if there's a crack in the heat exchanger or not. And, I'm not looking for CO, we're looking for O2s and things like that. So, and we have to remember that, yes, I live on the East Coast, and here, this is boiler country. There's a lot of different areas and pockets of the hydronic world where boilers are king, but a vast majority, especially on the residential side of the market, for the rest of the country, is a lot of gas furnaces. So then you need that kind of stuff. So we wanted to make one type of instrument for all different types of applications, and it just makes production easier, makes our units more cost effective, but it gives you the capability no matter what you're doing.
Absolutely. Curious. And if you're listening to this, don't read into this too much, but I'm just curious, what is your guesstimation of percentage of women in your training classes?
Low, um,
Yeah.
we're very low. I'm a big proponent of women in our industry, and actually, I find that to be honest, the ones that do come typically have like a really good. Uh, they want to participate. like they're in the class to learn, to talk, to be engaging. I find them to be very, very good. For the most part. Um, but I would say one, maybe less than 10%, and that's on the high side.
It's not that they're not capable, but training is you're almost on the front lines of a leading indicator. Because a company can hire a couple women and have different demographics of their workforce, but they only see themselves. But when you are constantly training, especially between three people all over the United States, you start seeing kind of what the average industry is. And, there's been this push to add women, for whatever. And yeah, but if you train the companies and you're in those training classes, if the women are not showing up to the classes, then you can roughly say that they're not in the field and they're not there. But then when you start seeing more women show up, you can start seeing the change. So I'm just, I've,
I
I got
definitely
a,
see more on the residential side for sure. I mean, it's not even close. On the commercial boiler end, if I see one in a season, I'd be surprised and that's just honesty. But on the residential side, I've started to see more over the years. What I find more and more is on the weatherization energy audit kind of market. There we're seeing that's probably a good 20-25% of the training that we do on the weatherization side. Again, probably let's say I'll take this week. We've done probably 30 classes, a couple hundred technicians this week alone, maybe two.
that's what I'm seeing. And, I see everything online and everybody I think is well meaning, but I'm like, well, if we struggle to attract men and to keep men who are traditionally drawn to this field and we struggle with them, why do we expect women to also like want to come in the field? Like we still have all the same problems. And how about we focus on fixing these workforce retention and attraction problems?
I think that's the biggest problem. I mean, because the reason we go out and do so much, half of the trainings we do are repeat to the same technician companies every year. Why? Because half of the technicians are new or have changed. I think that's the real crux of kind of our technician market. It's just the constant turnover that we have is an issue.
You can't develop expertise if people are constantly, even job hopping. People say like, oh, I job hop to here and here, and it happens a lot in residential as well as commercial. But you know, there is this kind of, you kind of need stability, and if companies can't build stability in their workforce, and if the industry can't build stability, it's like, well, no wonder we have so many people. All of these young people don't want to learn. They don't know any better. And I recorded a podcast a couple episodes ago on this, and it's like when a new person makes a mistake, the older person's like, you shouldn't have made that and all this stuff. But the older people often forget where they were 20 or 30 years
Yeah.
ago and how many mistakes they made. And just as an industry, now that parts are more expensive and labor is more expensive, mistakes aren't tolerated to the same degree that they were when on the job training. And in the 90s nobody has cell phone and all this stuff, and the world was slower, and you can make a mistake and whatever. But now it's this high pressure, go 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 go. And if you go to a training class, companies expect you to come out of the class an expert, and all right,
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
now you can go do that. That's common with boiler startup training. Oh, I went to the manufacturer's training and I got a certificate, and now I'm certified to be a startup technician. It's like, oh, all right, cool. So in 2 days, you went over all the problems
That you'll ever see.
that you're
Yeah.
going to see when
Yeah.
you're going to go do a startup. And I'll tell you what, I learned more doing a startup than I did in my training classes.
It's real
And
life.
yeah, but it's not that the training classes, they can't represent real life, but it's just you only had 2 days, and you get a high level overview in 2 days. The same with a combustion analyzer. If you go to a 2 hour training, you are not an expert on combustion analyzers. And you know what? A good investment is of your time next year, next heating season, or even in the summer, go to the same training class. I guarantee you will have forgotten stuff because all of human psychology and whatever tells you that you forget, a certain amount of percentage of stuff after a certain amount of time. And especially in a full year, you'll forget stuff when
For sure. And you're going from one aspect to another. And you brought up technology. Technology is great, like but it's a double-edged sword. Like you're right. Back in the day, even when I started, nobody had. You had a cell phone, but it could really only make calls or texts on like little buttons that forget about it, right? Nowadays, I watch younger guys. They're in front of a furnace or a boiler and they got a problem. You can Google search and watch videos and YouTube and gee, we have a whole YouTube channel where we put stuff on there. So yes, things become more expensive and we have technology that has changed it, but also on the good front, like if you're stuck in front of something, you can actually there's platforms that we're a part of on social media sites, right? That guys help each other. It's like almost like a hey, I've seen this. What do you think? So there's good and bad to it where guys didn't have that resource before. And the I got to be honest, the thing about the old guys coming over and going, hey, you shouldn't have done it this way. As much as I have a love for everybody who trained me and did things over the years, one of the things that we do in class, which is kind of funny, and you go, that first slide I told you about, well, the worst thing is we've always done it this way. And then I go, okay, well, how many times have you guys walked into a boiler room or a basement or anything and go, oh my God, who the hell installed this? I go, everybody who's been teaching it the wrong way for all these years. So the guy yelling at you to do it this way doesn't mean that he's been doing it right for the last 20 or 30 years. That doesn't mean shit. It depends on what you're kind of doing. And yeah, of course, I respect everybody that has been in this industry for a long time. But yeah, you're right. We all made mistakes. If you saw my first 5 years of training classes, you would literally go, this guy knows nothing. And the amount of guys who used to walk out of my classes when I was 22 and 23 and 24 years old, come on, man. And then what happened over those years was somebody would ask you a question, you didn't know the answer, and you look stupid in trying to train. So guess what you did? You figured out what the hell the answer was. So the next time you get asked, and then you get to a point where you're standing in front of class, and as the guy's about to say something, you go, I already know the question. And you kind of, so we all need experience, no matter what you do in life. You need experience in order to understand. And you're right. Come to one of my classes. You think you're going to pick up everything that we know in 3 hours? And what happens is we used to go over all those different readings and ranges, right? And guys would write them all down, or I'd give them cheat sheets. And guess what used to happen, Eric? The next day, guy's in front of a boiler and he's calling. And he's going, what did you say for this thing? And I see this. And I go, we just went over this yesterday, but let's go over it again, right? Because now he's in front of that particular thing that we didn't go through. So that's why it was so important for us to put it in a virtual mode on the unit, on the analyzer, as an extra help. So now it's in front of you at all times. It's literally at your fingertips at all times, right? So, but yeah, I mean, we all go through this, and now I have younger guys coming up in our team who your job is just to go to the classes, listen and learn, pick up things, and then okay, you're gonna take this topic and you're gonna talk about this topic, and we'll build you up until you're ready to go on your own, right? But believe me, there's nobody who's eaten more shit standing in front of technicians than myself. So I get it, man. I totally get it.
As a new technician or anybody doing something new, you got to be willing to look dumb and look stupid in front of people, and a lot of people don't want to do that.
They don't want to. Yeah, I know.
Like, you just got to get over it. But also, as a new person, just words of encouragement. Like, it doesn't take 10, 20 years to be proficient. Like,
Absolutely.
if you spend 2 years hitting the books, learning, and like actually like trying to like progress yourself forward instead of saying, "Oh, I don't know, like this seems like in 2 years, you'd be surprised at how much you can learn. And just because somebody has 20 years of experience doesn't mean that's 20 years of good experience. And it doesn't mean they learned for all 20 years. Yes, they may have the nuances, but it doesn't take 20 years of experience to install a furnace or install a boiler and start it up correctly. As long as you do it per the manufacturer's instructions and you have a general idea of how everything works in the system, you can get pretty far. And you know what? If you don't know, you can read the manual and you can call other people. Don't
Call
be
us. That's what we
don't
say
be
to the guys. Yeah, don't be a stranger.
always ask for help. And the best people, the best technicians, when I was learning, I would call people. Luckily, I had people to call. Some people don't have people to call, but make friends with people outside of the company. Get on the boiler Facebook groups. Get on LinkedIn. Like there's a world beyond you and the 10 people you work with.
Absolutely.
And you can learn from other people. So I want to get into the personal gas detector, the Be Safe. Uh, so tell the people what it is, what the importance of it, and yeah, I got one, and it's a game changer for personal safety in the mechanical rooms.
Absolutely, man. So it's been one of my goals for I can't even tell you how many years. So obviously I've been teaching combustion for a long time, but I also became certified in teaching carbon monoxide safety, and that's a big component of it, right? It's one component of combustion, but it is something that kind of hit home to me because it is a not only so much a safety function, but there's way more to CO than we all know. We all think, oh, CO's bad. I if you tell me I can smell what's going on, no, you can't. Okay, so stop it. You can't see it. You can't smell it. We're seeing a growing influx in our market too from early onset dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and things like that because of low level carbon monoxide poisoning over time. It is, it was like it was unbelievable. So I'll tell you a little story this morning that what happened. I always carry my little personal CO detector, small little gadget on my backpack with me at every training, every boiler room, everywhere I go. This morning, I'm doing a training in Allentown and at this technician's place, and right outside our door, where the training room is, this guy was running his diesel truck. Just I don't know. It was cold. He was running it for a while, and all of a sudden we're talking about CO and about this, and my detector started going off inside the room because the exhaust was actually coming into the room. We got up to about 44 parts per million, and then when we noticed when he pulled away, it started coming down. And one of the techs in the room said, "Holy shit! I never even thought of that." I go, "That's exactly why you have no idea what you're walking into." So anyway, years ago, about 10 or 12 years ago now, um, I've always been teaching, okay, here's your analyzer. You have a personal CO detector on there. That's why you turn your analyzer on outside and you walk into the boiler room or the basement or anywhere you're going because the pump is running and it's pulling in CO. But let's be honest. 99.99% of guys aren't using the analyzer and turning it on outside and walking into the boiler room looking for CO leaks. It just is not the case. Um, that's another issue. About 10 or 12 years ago now, there was a company that's local to us that I knew one of the technicians well, and he was an older gentleman, and he was a really good guy, and I liked him, and he would stop by the office and pick up and drop off the analyzers for calibration. Anyway, it ended up happening that this guy had passed away, working on a boiler room in a school, and I'm very close with the service manager over there, and I'd known this guy since I had started, and that kind of hit me that we need to, he went into the boiler room, was doing some startup work. His wife ended up calling dispatch, and they found him on the floor that night, and it was terrible. And then when I started really getting into CO safety and going to more training classes, you just start hearing nightmare stories. And then you started hearing stories of guys, in our industry being sued, being brought up on manslaughter charges, and all these types of things. And then there was a huge correlation between some of the new equipment and boilers going in that weren't vented properly, that weren't set up properly. we were just talking about it before about guys who had experience. Yeah, but boilers and furnaces aren't the same they were 20, 25 years ago either. So, and then we're starting to install stuff like we used to do it, and that's not the case. And we're seeing a huge increase in CO poisonings and stuff like that. And during COVID, when a lot of more people were home and we're making houses and buildings nice and tight, well, guess what's happening, right? So I started seeing a lot of this influx. So I've been after our development team for years to get into the personal safety market. Because every combustion class we do, that's the one question I probably get asked the most. Hey, do you guys have a little personal CO detector? And so finally, about 2 years ago now, we launched our Be Safe series. We have a singular small little personal single gas monitor, and we have one for O2 and H2S and all different ones. But our most popular by far is carbon monoxide. It's about $100. It lasts 2 years. You turn it on. It does not give you the ability to turn it off. It lasts 2 years. You throw it away. You buy a new one. They're $99. I mean, come on. It's I told you my son plays baseball. Do you know how much I spent on baseball bats alone last year?
Oh, $400 a bat.
And he's a catcher. Okay, so I got
Uh,
catching gear on top of it. Okay, and my son is 14 and he's 6 foot with a size 13 shoe. So I'm blowing through baseball gear and bats like you wouldn't believe. But for my own personal safety, I got this little $100 detector that's with me all the time. So we have the single gas version, and then we have for our bigger commercial and industrial guys, we have the multi gas version, which some guys want like LEL, which is the lower explosive, and they make gas leaks, O2, oxygen, CO, and in the cities we get a lot of requests for H2S, which is kind of like sewer gas. So that's a pretty popular configuration. But I kind of have one here. I can probably show you what I'm talking about. Well, I did have one here. Maybe one of the guys actually took it this morning. That's how popular they are. They get taken from my own bag. So, but no, I mean it is a great little function. And what we did to make ours different than everybody else's is that you can find personal CO detectors on the market, right? We talked about Amazon before. They're all about 100, 120 bucks, something like that. But if you look at the levels go off at 35 ppm on the low, 200 ppm on the high. That's pretty much every detector on the market. So again, when we launched ours into the market, we said, well, how could we be different? Well, we've been teaching combustion and CO safety for a long time, and the two levels that many, 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 many technicians do not know is that on a residential side, your ASHRAE requirement is actually 9 ppm in ambient air, and 35 ppm, which is the number everybody hears, is actually your OSHA requirement over an 8-hour period for CO in the air, which is also U.S. federal law. So what we did was we changed the sensor in ours and developed a detector that goes off. Your low level is 9 ppm and your high level is 35. So we're like, okay, again, we're going to have a product that, yeah, okay, a lot of other competitors have, but we're going to make one that has the actual ranges for residential and commercial technicians versus just any other detector that's 35 and 200. If you're reading 200 ppm in the air, what's the point of having a high alarm at that point? It's way too much.
Yeah, and that's to reiterate that 9 ppm, as you were talking about, the technician was looking for 2 to 300 in the for a cracked heat exchanger. But so with you mentioned the over the 8-hour period, and it's if you are a technician and you may say 9 ppm isn't a lot, and it's not, but if you are constantly exposed to 9 ppm or a little bit more constantly on every single job you go to, and you do that for years and years and years and years, and that's where
Yep.
the
That's
brain
where the health problems.
damage
Yeah.
and Parkinson's comes from. So, I've talked to people about this Be Safe analyzer, and I always take it with me on my training classes. And, a lot of people, oh, like I'll know when there's CO and all this stuff. And it's like, all right, well, why do you buy car insurance? Do you know when you're going to have a car accident? And, it seems like, oh, I have 10 technicians. I'm going to spend $1,000 on,
What, their life?
on gas safety. You're like, yeah, so that seems expensive, but then, bring up a very common occurrence of, oh, hey, a technician went to the hospital, carbon monoxide poisoning, they're going to be out a month with whatever, and the hospital bill is 50 grand. Now you're like, wait, $1,000 here, spend it. And
Yeah.
these companies a lot of companies preach safety, 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 but then when it comes down to actually spending the money, they cheap out, or oh, we have the combustion analyzer, they should just use their analyzer. All right, well, what's more likely?
Yeah,
Some
that's the thing.
Somebody turns on their combustion analyzer, waits a minute before they walk into the boiler room, or they walk into the boiler room with their customer as they're greeting them, and
And
they
they
go
know.
about it, and
And
they
they know.
immediately know. And it's now on the technician side, if your boss, if your employer buys these for you, don't just leave it in your truck. Don't wash it. You got to clip it. Put a spot next to your dash, next to your steering wheel where you clip it. You should I don't know if you got a 3D printer, but you should figure out maybe 3D print, or 3D print a dash mount. I was thinking about this. Um, some kind of mounting device, because I guarantee the number one ruining of these personal safety devices are technicians leave them on their clothes and they get washed, or laundered. Some companies have laundry service. And when I was doing service, everything that was important to me, I would have on my dash. So like lockout, tag out, and everything, I'd have reminders. Hey, do you have your keys? Do you have your locks? And all the other stuff, I would have reminders, so that I literally, could not start my truck without looking at my dash and seeing those reminders. It's something that you kind of get used to, but then, you don't see you build the repetition of, all right, I'm in my truck, the day's over, I'm going to unclip my gas analyzer and clip it on my dash. All right, we're good. And you build that progress, instead of like people unclipping it, throwing it in a cup holder, throwing it on the floor, putting it on their tool bag. Like there's all this other stuff, but you want to build a good habit of it. But yeah, they're highly, if in the world of safety and litigation and everything, taking that tiny extra step for technician safety. And what does that say to you? What does that say to your customers when your technician shows up, who's the expert, who's billing at $150 an hour or more, and they immediately walk in the boiler room and they say, no, my analyzer's going off, that's unsafe. Like if the gas company shows up, they show up with all these calibrated instruments, and the person shows up and, yep, we got a gas leak. If the fire department shows up, they show up with all these calibrated instruments. You, as the service technician, need to be the same thing. And the service technicians of today are much different than the ones of 20 years ago. And there is a certain amount of impression and wow to your customer of, hey, I'm pulling out a combustion analyzer. It's got a touch screen. And, it's not like you're wiping off dirt from 20 years ago on your combustion analyzer, and the hoses have 4 sets of tape along it because it got pinched and cut, and the probe is bent, and all this stuff. And you're putting your best foot forward and exhibiting that I am the expert. I know what I'm doing. I'm using my tools, and you can trust me. And like, there is a whole business about it. And yeah, I mean, how do you put a price on safety for $99 for a technician?
All the time in my classes, man. I mean, I spend a lot more money on bets. I'm trying to keep this kid alive, right? So, it's one of those jokes that I say, but like you guys, okay, you're liable for the equipment, right? So you have every piece of equipment you touch, you're liable for everybody that lives upstairs or lives in the building or works in the building. But how about you? What about your own safety? And I know by doing this for all these years, and no matter how many times, if I had $1 for every time I said, guys, turn your analyzer on outside, I wouldn't have to do this anymore. I would be rich. But I know that guys don't. No matter how many times I preach it, no matter how many times I say it, they typically turn it on in the boiler room or in the basement or something like that. So I tell guys now, well, if you have a personal detector and you know you have no CO in the room, then I have no problem with it, because I know that the air you're not pulling in any CO, and you're not zeroing that analyzer to the ambient air. I go, guys, if there's 200 parts per million in the room, first of all, you really wouldn't detect it right away because it hasn't built up enough yet. But if you turn your analyzer on in that room, it's going to show you 0 because you just zeroed it to that air. But now if I walk in, my detector's at 0, then yeah, go ahead, turn it on. I don't care. But I can't tell you now, since we've had it over 2 years, and I've been, before I used to use my analyzer doing it, how many stories I have of walking in somewhere just this morning where my damn detector was going off and there was a truck running outside. I mean, it's really astonishing once you start using it how much you're exposed to all the time, and you have to, and because I have a personal story of somebody that I know that passed away, it's and then you start hearing more and more of these type of stories, and it scares the living daylights out of me. One was the big thing in here, Eric, would change a lot, and especially on the residential side, where guys go, well, the you have CO detectors in the house. I go, yeah, okay, that's a $20 detector. That if you actually ever read the back of it, the first level of alarm is 70 parts per million after 3 hours and it COs a heavy gas. So if you have it on the ceiling on the second floor, do you know how much is in the basement by the time it gets to that shit? It's a lot. So, you're the one, going into the basement and where the equipment is all the time. You should know what's happening for your own health, for your own safety. You want to go home at night? I want to go home at night. So let's make sure that we do. And I've had situations with my detectors going off and outside the front doors, walking into a boiler room, a CO leak, and what's happening now in our market, especially on residential and commercial, we're using Schedule 40 PVC piping on the exhaust. Right, we see a lot of that. Well, that's not made for plumbing. That's not made for exhaust. That's made for plumbing. And what's happening in now is that where we connect sealants and glues and everything and putting this together to vent acidic combustion hot gases, it starts to eat away at the connections. And now we're seeing a huge increase in carbon monoxide being in the room because that those acidic gases start eating away at the connection. And all of a sudden there's low level and that low level builds and we start to see these problems. So I want to detect something going in immediately. And if I walk into somebody's home and I go into the basement and it's 10 parts per million, yeah, doesn't seem like enough, like a lot. But guess what? The maximum allowable is 9 for a reason. So that means that there's a leak somewhere that we need to find before we're held liable for not finding it. And the only way you can do that is to have a personal detector on you at all times. Whether you clip it on yourself, whether you clip it on your tool bag, whether you clip, like I have it on my backpack because everywhere I go, my backpack's on me. So that's usually clipped there. Everywhere I go, hotel, rent a car, and no matter what I'm doing. So I have funny stories of the alarm going off. I have where we found it. The funniest. Okay, I'll tell one funny story. My son had the pleasure of playing in the Little League World Series last summer, which was an incredible experience for our family. Really cool. And for a little baseball kid at 12 years old, there's not a bigger dream that you could have. I think he lived out his dream at 12. But in the time, you're kind of going through all these. My wife and I and my daughter were pretty much living at hotels for, it must have been 6 weeks throughout the summer, all throughout the run. One night, me and a lot of the dads, you kind of have a lot of downtime in between games, so we're kind of hanging out, at the hotel lobby bar and hanging out, and we're going outside, inside. Summer, it's nice. So me and a buddy, I had my backpack outside, and my wife and I were there, and I go, oh, I'm gonna go inside, grab a beer, and I'm gonna put my backpack in our room and everything, and because we were coming back from something. And as I walk into the lobby to start talking to dads, my detector's going off. And I go, okay, maybe it's picking up something. I don't know. Well, lo and behold, not 15 fucking minutes later, were there two fire trucks outside our hotel and kicked everybody out because there was a carbon monoxide leak in the kitchen. True story. To the point where every parent on our baseball team got a personal detector courtesy of me because they all saw what we saw. And that's in my personal life. In my work life, it amazes me still that I deal with technicians on a daily basis, and I would say maybe 10% of guys actually have some sort of detector. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like the fire department showing up and they're like, "Oh wait, fire's hot.
Yeah.
Did you guys bring the uniforms, like the heat protection? Oh, okay.
Where's the
It,
hose?
yeah, like firefighters show up to most calls, and they get a lot of dumb calls, but they show up in gear, rocking and rolling to most calls because they're ready to go. And if they were like, 80% of calls are not a fire, we don't need to wear our bunker gear and all this stuff, they do different stuff. But once they start assuming that there's no danger, we don't need to be prepared, we don't need our gas and all this stuff, then they need it. And technician, the other side of it is, as a technician, you are there to educate your customer and hey, my detector's going off, and let me talk to you about CO poisoning and this and that and that. And I've heard so many stories of like pregnant wives, having like headaches, and they just think it's because they're pregnant, and they're really sensitive to the environment that they're in. And eventually, the furnace guy comes or whatever. Hey, you have a hole in your heat exchanger, and I'm only measuring 15 to 20 parts per million. But when you eat and sleep, and your husband is gone every day, and your kids are gone every day, and you're home, alone and doing all this stuff, and you're constantly in this house, that 20 parts per million of CO in the air, that gets you start having headaches, and you're like, man, like, is it just because I'm pregnant? You go to the doctor, and, you may have a vacation. You're like, man, I'm feeling great. And then, it may take a while for them to put two and two together, but it normally takes months and months and months. And there's thousands of stories out there
Yeah, thousands, man.
of
It's
people.
unbelievable.
So get a detector, and hotels are a big one. Unfortunately, commercial spaces don't always ventilate properly, and hotels are notorious for that because ventilation costs money. Do you sell permanent ones that can be interlocked with the boiler?
Yeah. So obviously, many guys who know us for the combustion side and the combustion analyzers. Not a lot of guys know that we do, again, because a lot of our advertising dollars go into actual trainings, right? But on the gas, we're huge into gas safety and on anything that's combustion related. So yes, we have our analyzers, we have our personal gas monitors, the wearable ones that we've been talking about, single gas, multi gas, and then we also have what we call our Safeguardian series, which is a fixed permanent mount gas detection system with a controller that can go into your building system or a valve shut off, where we have three different versions, one for CO, so big in boiler room, especially on the commercial side, one for oxygen, and one for LEL, lower explosive, so gas leaks, right? So if you're in these commercial boiler rooms, there's not somebody in there every day. So if there's a gas leak or there's a carbon monoxide leak or something like that, it's one of those things that are permanently mounted in there all the time. That is typically tied into, a safety valve or something that shuts the boiler down or alarms the building system, where a technician or somebody would be alarmed that, hey, something's going off. We have that for our Safe Guardian series, and then we also have our Cool Guardian series, that's kind of a fixed system for refrigerants, because we do we're a full-fledged instrumentation company, from combustion analyzers, combustible leak detectors, personal monitors, fixed gas systems, for residential all the way up to big chemical, petrochemical, paper mills. I mean, you name it, cement, we do it. And then we have our AC and refrigeration side, which a lot of guys don't know we do, but we do. Digital manifold gauges and refrigerant leak detectors, and fixed gas detection systems for the refrigeration side. So we kind of do both, but anywhere from you walking in and to the system, 24-hour analysis, we kind of do it all in that range.
Yeah, that's always important, especially the gas detection system. That seems like another cost, especially to owners. Oh, why am I paying for another thing? But it's
Funny part is, man, I mean, a fixed system is like $200.
Yep, and
The whole concept, the whole box, and you're talking about a 4 to 20 milliamp output or a Modbus. I mean, you're just paying for the sensor in the box. That's it. It's just the design of the box around it, but it's 200, 250. And we had recently a school not too far from here, probably about two towns over, that recently had a carbon monoxide leak in the school in the boiler room, and winded up sending two teachers and eight children to the hospital. Well, guess what they put in right immediately after that? Unfortunately, one of the things about the U.S. that look, I'm a big U.S. rah rah guy, but we are a very litigious and very reactive society. Even in our market, we are litigious and reactive. I don't take the manufacturers don't take the liability, the technician does. You touch it, you own it. Congratulations. And we're a peoples who literally have to put a caution hot on a coffee mug, or Tide Pods, do not eat. But on the things that are actually dangerous and actually a problem, that's where we're a little bit lax. We're a little more reactive than proactive. My job and our job is at Citron, when we train, is to how do we get guys to be more proactive? Why do we do things like this conversation? Is because we want guys to learn that there are better ways to do things. There are ways to get trained. There are different products out there that do a variety of different things that help the job. I want guys to be more proactive in our industry, and the more proactive we are, the more we learn. I mean, the better we're going to become.
Just because you know about it doesn't mean your owner knows about it. And there's a as a technician, as a contractor, and you get used to the safety, liability stuff, all that stuff, because you see it every day. You work with it. That's your job. So you just end up believing that everybody ends up knowing about it, and they don't. So, like, if you don't tell every single person, every single customer that you have, especially the larger ones, hey, have you ever thought, or, even in schools, hey, have you ever thought about, CO monitor, being installed with the boiler? Some places they have it as code, but hey, interlock, this would be the cost, this is the safety, here's some articles and stuff. And you just educate, educate, educate. Fire departments have been educating people for decades on smoke detectors, and yet they still run free smoke detector programs that go around and
Yeah,
educate people about smoke detectors. And that's a perfect example of, you don't just check the box on training. And when somebody is born, they don't have this inherent knowledge of, oh yeah, the human race already learned that and technology improved. So like they just know more. Like, everybody starts at zero and you have to build them up from there. And so, you should, as a technician, as a company who are servicing your customers, you guys should get sick of talking about safety and CO and, everything you're doing and all that stuff, because that's probably the first time. Think about, even on the residential side, how often does an HVAC person come out to somebody's house? Maybe once a year, maybe.
maybe.
So at best, on a good system, if they're like, oh, we want a tune up or something, they have an expert coming to the house for a couple hours once a year. And that 3 hours, 4 hours is your window of opportunity. Not that you're going to just sell them on stuff, but hey, I saw this. This is what's going on. This is what's going on with your system. My combustion analyzer is saying this. But, do you have a CO detector? Do you have this? Do you have that? And, I really noticed this. Like, and you're there to educate them. And that's really how you get customers who are like, hey, I want that company. I want that customer. But if you're on the owner's side, don't expect your technicians just to get there themselves. The high achievers will get there, but you got to train. You got to role play. You got to say, hey, what are we going to, like, hey, come out to me. I'm a customer. What are you going to tell me in the first 5 minutes of a service call? What are you going to say when they have a cracked heat exchanger? And you go through these scenarios and say, hey, these are the guidelines. This is what we want. Don't expect your technicians just to pick it up and just know better just because you know better.
Part of our training is, okay, now you have the analyzer. Let's talk about the service end. We talk about the install end. The other end that a lot of guys don't think about either is the sales end. So how do you, as a technician, differentiate yourself from every other company? That's one aspect. The other aspect is, how does you as a technician differentiate yourself from every other technician that you work with? So I try to tell guys, like, here's a way in which you use an analyzer as a sales tool to look like the expert. Because here's what nobody does: walks into the house with the analyzer running and starts having a conversation with the homeowner. Nobody. What we do is we teach guys, turn the unit on outside, because number one, you're calibrating it outside, right? When you walk into the room or to the home, if you don't have a personal detector, it is yours. And the first question out of anybody's mouth typically is, "Oh my God, what is that?" Oh, well, then you start having the conversation where, hey, this is a calibrated testing tool. Right now, it's testing the air in the room. And right now, I want to go down to your boiler. Or I want to go down to your furnace. I'm going to plug this in. I'm going to show you exactly how safely and how efficiently your equipment's running before I even touch anything. What we just did? We just established credibility. And you just gave this customer, this person, holy crap, now you look like the expert, right? You want to look like the expert. It's not just having the tools, it's how to use the tool. And then what I try to tell a lot of, because I see a lot of younger technicians in our class, because you're right, like a service manager and owner sometimes sends these young guys to the class going, oh, they need combustion training because they are going to start using analyzers. Like they're going to leave the class and all of a sudden be experts on how to do a combustion analysis. That's not how that works. But anyway, I see a lot of younger guys, and I have conversations with them, and I'll tell them, look, let me give you a little piece of advice. You want to make more money in this industry, you want to be more recognized, you want the job jumping thing that we were talking about before, right? About going over here for $1 more. You want to know how to do that. So me, when I was in sales, when every time I met with an owner of a company or a service manager, you know what and I would show them the analyzer and we'd go through the features and okay, great. The first thing they would always tell me is, all right, let me play around with one before I invest in 1 or 10 or 20 or whatever the case may be. Let me play with one. Let me give it to my best tech and let him play around with it and get his feedback, and then we'll go from there. 9 times out of 10, that's how this works, especially in the tools and instrumentation side when they're, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. Nobody's just gonna, if they don't know you, especially with Citron, they don't know you like a name brand. That's typically how it works. So I always tell these guys, be that guy, be that tech. You know how to get better at it is not pulling your analyzer once a year out of the back of the truck and doing one test on it. Use that shit every day. Use it every day. Why? You'll get, even if you think the furnace or boiler doesn't need it or might not need it, I don't care. Put the analyzer on there. Get more familiar with using it. Get familiar with what the readings are doing. Holy shit! You might actually see something that you didn't even think was happening. The more familiar you are with using the analyzer, the more, in a good way, the more dangerous you become to everybody else, because now you become the knowledge center, right? And then that's how you differentiate yourself, and you want to make more money, and you want to move up in status, and all this kind of stuff. Be that tech that every service manager and owner leans on for that type of stuff, man. But in order to do that, it's like it's like trying to ride a bike the first time, or like what we were just talking about before. You're going to screw up. You're going to make mistakes. But if you never use your analyzer, you're too afraid of it, then you're going to be where 80% of our technicians are.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Jordan practiced free throws every day.
Exactly.
He was naturally talented in basketball, yet he wanted to be better. So I don't get why, we idolize these athletes, yet when it comes to the average job, I don't get why technicians are like, oh, I'll just show up to 1 or 2 training classes a year and then I'll just learn on the job. And what I learn. And yeah, that's it. And it's like, no, we got to practice the fundamentals. And if you don't know anything about a combustion analyzer, bring it out, as you said, see it. Hey, this furnace is working great. All right. Well, if you only put your combustion analyzer in furnaces or boilers that are not working great and you're trying to tune, you don't really understand what one that's working great.
Yeah, good ones look like.
Yeah. So what is good? So it's like, all right, this boiler's working good. Let me just put in my combustion analyzer. Oh, all right. Yeah. But you could also be like, the boiler's working good. I wasn't called for combustion, all this stuff. And then you put in your combustion analyzer and you're like, wait, there's a problem there. Like that's not normal because, this equipment, and then, you can open up other sales avenues, and it's not from, oh, we got to sell. It's selling from actual experience. And it's especially in the larger boiler market, a customer may not know they have a combustion issue till you sit up the boiler. So what if you caught that and we're like, hey, like, let me spend a couple hours retuning your burner instead of, let me spend a day cooling down your boiler and punching all the tubes out of soot and then, closing it back up and then cleaning or resetting combustion. So like it's being proactive and being the expert, being the solutions provider for your customer and setting yourself apart from the average crowd. If you don't expect to be great, don't expect to have great pay. If you treat your job as, a 9 to 5 punch in, punch out, and you don't put any effort towards it, you gotta put effort towards it. Not saying you gotta go home every night and read books and manuals and stuff, but if you just show up and you're like, well, they didn't tell me that, so I'm not going to learn it. That's,
Or I don't
you know,
care.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
then you will be in the rat race with everybody else. I try to tell these guys that all the time, man. I mean, look, I didn't get to be where I am as a GM here by just doing yeah, it's hard work and it took a lot of beatings and abuse, but you want to get to where you want to go. That's part of the path to get there. And then you look back on some of the crazy things you've seen or some of the dumb things you've done, and guess what? You're just like everybody else who's successful. Nobody who's successful, it doesn't have a bad day or didn't have a bad experience. My son obviously plays a lot of sports, and he's talented, naturally talented. But you mentioned Michael Jordan. I tell him the story all the time because he loves basketball, and I go, Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, right? So when you try out for a team, if you don't make it, that doesn't mean anything. Just keep working at what you love and keep working at it and improve. And so, but I hope to install that in him, that and to everybody that is in my training classes, that look, man, you want to improve and you want to make more money and you want to move up, you have to do the work too. You have to get the training, use the equipment, get more knowledgeable about it. Because I can tell immediately whenever I do a training class, especially at 7 o'clock in the morning, who's looking at me like they want to learn and sitting up and going, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, you know what? And asking questions. And I could tell versus the guy sleeping in the back kind of going like, oh, I was just told to be here.
yep.
And then I wonder who will manage who one day and who will move up the ladder. That's just how the world works.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to call you out on a technicality, but the Michael Jordan story, I don't know if you know this, but he was only cut from his freshman year to not make varsity.
No, I know. I do know that. My wife is a huge Jordan fan, but my 14-year-old doesn't need to know that right now.
But so people use that as like this like crazy
Yeah,
inspirational thing. And it's like, well, it's not really normal for a freshman to come in, especially basketball season. That's like the first month of high school for a freshman to come in and make varsity. But he made the, junior high team or whatever. And I think they killed it and were just ran over everybody. But then the next year as a sophomore, he played varsity and
yeah.
but even then, yeah, it's still it's not.
It doesn't matter. It's a
There's
story.
no natural talent, and even like LeBron James, like his kid Bronny, yeah, he got on the Lakers and stuff, but like just because he's LeBron James' kid, one of the greatest basketball players in existence, yet his kid, it does, he doesn't have this full ride to the NBA of just oh yeah, I'm just naturally gifted, I can just show up. No, you got to put in the work. I remember hearing a story of some guy got drafted. He was in practice and they were doing something standing on the side, and he like looked out over the field and there was this guy like running around in a circle like practicing footwork, and he's like, oh, who is that? Like, and they're like, oh, that's Jerry, that's Jerry Rice. It's like,
Wow.
wait, the great, like, one of the greatest football players. He's like, wait, he's out there practicing footwork. He's like, what? No, I would think he knows footwork, but it's like you practice the basics and you become an expert on the basics, and you get so good at the basics that you can't make a mistake. And I don't see why we can't treat our jobs as technicians that way. And there's a lot more on the line. There's personal safety and other people's safety on the line, especially with boilers. So treat your job that way, and you will find that you actually like showing up to work when you show up with a great attitude.
100%, man.
How do people find you? What platform are you most active on?
We're active on, like, you could follow us on all of our social media stuff. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram is probably our three biggest ones. CitronAmericas.com is our website. You could find us on Citron Americas on all those three platforms. Uh, sometimes guys go to Citron and they go to our Italian guys because that's our headquarters. So Citron Americas. Over here, we're based in the Philly area, so you could go to our website, find our contact information, and give us a call. Like I said, myself, Jason, Dan Kelly is our other trainer and sales manager, and Kevin Dorwart. Kevin's unique to us because he comes from many years from a competitor and does what we do. He's based in the out in Pittsburgh, so he handles a lot of our kind of Midwest stuff, so that helps us out a little bit. But the three of us, this is what we do for a living. So reach out to any one of us and any one of the three. We have certified training. We're here to help, man. Just if I do anything, I always give my card, my personal cell phone number out everywhere, and I go, guys, if you're in front of a furnace or a boiler, just call us. I don't care if you're using a competitor's analyzer. I don't give a shit. I want to be the guy that you consider the expert on what you're doing. And then when you need a new analyzer, you'll think of us. But call me for help first.
Yeah, don't say you tried without calling Jason or somebody else at Citron.
Exactly.
If they didn't get a phone call from you, you didn't actually try. So I appreciate you coming on.